last summer, when we were discussing what theme our would take this year, our books and artists, I suggested a new book that I had just seen about Anne Frank, written by Ruth Franklin, entitled The Many Lives of Anne Frank. Do you remember that conversation?
Oh, yes, I do, because I snarled at you. Because I thought, not another Anne Frank. She is the Abraham Lincoln of Holocaust nonfiction. And I'm not being disrespectful.
Really?
But,
do you remember the tone I told you to take with this talk? This is Holocaust remembrance.
I'm telling you, there's nothing like this. It's nothing. And I will take all the credit and none of the blame, to quote Michael Scott. Okay. But truly, it wasn't out of any type of disrespect.
Right.
It was because Cindy and I both know that Anne Frank, what has become Anne Frank, is problematic. Because how is it possible for one person's writings to encompass the systematic murder of 6 million European Jews, and yet she monopolizes, I'm not blaming her, but what has evolved is she monopolizes a Holocaust education curriculum, her work, okay? But I trusted this woman, and I bought a new hardback.
Show them your book. Look at this, how crazy.
Say, okay? And look, I am an old dog, but I can learn new tricks, because I am here to say, clearly I liked the book, okay? And I also have a bit of an obsessive compulsive problem, but
we would never have guessed.
But I, you know what? I liked it, and I liked it, and there was obviously color-coded so much in it that I wanted to talk to you about, but I can't get to all the colors and all the subjects, and I was really stressing out. But then a friend said to me, she said, "What's so special about Anne Frank's writing?" And I thought, that's it, that's the decision. I'm a little believer in things are meant to be. So I thought, that's what I'm gonna go with. So today I'm gonna talk about why Anne's writing is so special. And I'm gonna talk about the evolution of her writing, okay, how it evolved. And then I'm gonna talk about, and this is so precious, Cindy brought her volume, her book that she read when she first read the book. Maybe this cover looks familiar
It's an
to
antique.
You? Oh, you still have it?
She changed my life. I have to tell you.
She changed your life.
I Anne Frank that I worked for 2 years. I had dark hair at the time. I thought I was.
You thought you were Anne Frank. All right. So that's you do not have to read the book. You have to talk to Kathy afterward. You can't put any Post-it notes on her. But that answers the question. That answers the question because you identified with her. Okay. Okay, you were her.
I am.
You're okay. Now we'll talk to Kathy later, who's the therapist, who's in front of you, and we're going to work it. We're going to take care of all the problems right here today. Okay.
Are we going to get started ever?
No, we're on page. I'm already in trouble. All right. So that's my plan, and hopefully. By the time we're done, you'll be able to understand, like Kathy, like Cindy and myself, why this book is so incredibly special to us. Cindy, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Okay. True confession. I've been obsessed with Anne Frank and her diary since I was introduced to her in the 1960s. And that, my friends, has been a continuing theme for over 6 decades. What is it about her that still resonates? Her humanity, her courage, her determination, her optimism, her crisp storytelling, her love life with Peter. I was really into love stories back in those days. Or her relatable relationship with her mother, who, now that I am a mother of daughters, Edith Frank seems to have been given a raw deal for eternity. Or was it her Jewishness? Because as a Jewish adolescent in Memphis, Tennessee, growing up there during the days of Elvis, and yes, you may recall Elvis's dentist Jewish dentist, lived right down the street from us. Dr. Hoffman got a new Cadillac every Christmas from Elvis. Yes, poor Anne had to live with the dentist, Dr. Pfeffer, but that's for Stacey to go into. We must remind ourselves of the fact that Anne and her family were forced to go into hiding because they were Jews. As the eldest of 3 daughters and the one with Gerda Schwartz, a tiny woman with a tattoo on her arm, a Holocaust survivor, and my Sunday school teacher, I felt the events of the Shoah, which is the Hebrew term for Holocaust, keenly, and knew that but by the grace of God could have been my family. At the time, my rabbi, James Wax, had been to the concentration camps and sermonized about them continuously. It was like, a lot. And then there is more. I was exposed to a Jewish Federation film, a documentary called Let My People Go, which featured fresh images of concentration camps, images that were seared into my brain that have never left. Bodies in wheelbarrows, bodies of innocents piled on top of one another, untold skeletons, thousands and thousands of them just because they were Jews, the same faith my family observed. And then there was the Anne Frank movie with Millie Perkins, remember that, as Anne? And who could ever forget Shelley Winters as Mrs. Von Damme? For an impressionable girl, I identified with Anne. That explains a lot. How about you, Stacey?
Well, I remember reading the book in middle school, and like you, I had also been exposed to those horrific pictures. I was babysitting one night, and after the kids went to sleep and Love Boat and Fantasy Island wrapped up, I went and grabbed a big black book off the bookshelf, the home where I was babysitting. And when I opened that book and saw those images, as a 13-year-old girl, I realized that, I wasn't just some kid growing up in Ohio, but, people like me were hunted and killed. And I remember walking home that night, and I wasn't afraid of the dark, because back then you could walk home at night. I was just afraid. I don't live that way anymore, but I was then. But so her book, these images had a profound effect on me, and the film, because for me it was all about that dreamy Peter and Anne and that kiss, and oh my gosh, I was all over it. But now looking back, it was almost absurd. It was absurd. We were young.
Yeah.
We were so young.
We were naive.
We were naive. Yeah. Well, some of us still are. Okay, move on. Time's a wasting. Time's a wasting.
You have got to.
No, that's all. That's it, Cindy. Now tell me.
Wait, how do you just...
Tell me about, we have to talk about an artist.
Yes, it was your
I
cue.
forgot.
Remember?
My cue in blue that I ignored. The cue in blue. Cindy, how did you decide to focus on Gerhard Richter as he relates to our dearest Anne? And there's
Will you click for me, please?
Gladly. Here we go.
Okay, I thought I would present some of the best images that contemporary artists had created of Anne Frank. But after reading the insightful Franklin book, and after seeing a life-changing art retrospective of the works of artist Gerhard Richter in Paris in January, I shifted gears as the 94-year-old Richter, one of the most important and well-known German painters of the 20th and 21st centuries, had actually illustrated Anne's diary in his mid-20s at the beginning of his long career, and in his early 80s, he created a masterpiece that referred to one of the most horrific stops of Anne's brief life, Auschwitz-Birkenau. The whole family was sent from Amsterdam to Birkenau, and Birkenau was the main killing center of the Auschwitz complex, composed of 3 separate complexes and 40 subcamps. And she arrived in September, the family arrived in September of 1944. So let's turn our attention to the genius that is Gerhard Richter, seen in his Cologne studio circa 1985 as an artist for over 6 decades. And this was a poster on the wall at the Foundation Vuitton in Paris that I saw in January, this image of him. He was born in Dresden in 1932. By the age 12, he was a member of the Junior Auxiliary of Hitler Youth. although he was never drafted, we will see from his lifelong collection of images from the war and his consistent return to the subject in his paintings, the destruction of 60% of the world's Jews, or 2 out of 3 European Jews, had been killed by Germans. That left a deep impression on him. The fact that his father and 2 uncles were in the Wehrmacht, which is the term for the United Armed Forces of Nazi Germany, that informed Richter's decision-making process, including he defected in 1961 from Dresden, where he grew up, from communist East Germany to Dusseldorf in West Germany, right before the Berlin Wall went up. He's labeled as the Picasso of the 21st century for his prodigious output, in that he, like Pablo Picasso, has never been content to rest on one style or medium. Primarily, he's a painter and a photographer. Richter used photography both as a source for his, quote, photo paintings, and I'm going to show you some shortly, and used photography as an independent medium. He's also a major photography collector, a sculptor, a draftsman, does works on paper, made stained glass, made glass panes, tinted mirrors, and digital media. So he's really quite extraordinary that way. Described by Harvard scholar, retired Harvard scholar and critic for over 50 years, Benjamin Buchloh, Richter is, quote, one whose repeated return to the question of whether any artist, and more improbably, any German painter, could possibly construct a credible mnemonic representation of European Jewry under the rule of German Nazi fascism, end quote. Now remember the term mnemonic. If you don't, this should remind you, this little ditty here. It harkens back to learning one's notes in junior high music class, E, G, B, D, F. Every good boy in Memphis, they said, deserves fun.
It's so bizarre. You're the only one in Memphis.
Okay. Why am I bringing up that term now? Well, before we get to the early paintings and to Richter's Birkenau pictures, we need to understand that his use of mnemonics in his paintings make them much more powerful. In Richter's visual language, a mnemonic serves as, quote, a memory trigger, a visual device such as a specific image or a symbol that is designed to remind us of the reality of complex information or memories. You're looking, can you go to the next one, please? Oh, you're being so kind to me. Okay. You're looking at a good example here relating to September 11th, 2001, a day I'm sure that is seared in our collective memories. Richter's mnemonic of the Twin Towers, which has been painted over with a muted palette of grays, blues, and whites. And according to archive.com, these colors, quote, emphasize the fleeting nature of memory and the profound impact of the event that it commemorates. The overall composition, with its fragmented and indistinct imagery, imbues us with a sense of reflection and mourning, not the time of the day, but mourning as in mourning a loss. And he reached this method by painting multiple layer on layer, and he uses dry brush. He uses a dry brush on a wet surface and wipes the brush across to kind of give this sense of ambiguity. And sometimes he even uses a squeegee. So I'm going to show you an example of that later. At the beginning of his practice in the early 60s, Richter struggled with how to deal with the Holocaust in art. And we're going to look at several images, as I said, of Anne Frank, and then again in 2014, a series of 4 abstract paintings entitled Birkenau that will chill you to the bone, as they did me when I saw them a few months ago. Before we discuss the Anne Frank drawings, we must examine one more important influence on Richter, the philosopher, musician, German-Jewish Theodor Adorno, who famously wrote in 1949 that to, quote, write poetry after Auschwitz was barbaric. Have any of you heard that statement before? Well, yes, so now you've heard it. His quote needs some unpacking. For one thing, his statement was not a ban of poetry or the arts, but simply put, it was a critique of the question, how does a culture move on after something as catastrophic as Auschwitz? Harshly criticizing Germans' inability to mourn and remember the victims, Adorno was not a fan of Anne Frank's diary or the way that the German public used it for what Adorno called the diary an alibi, arguing that by focusing on Anne, a highly sympathetic individual, Germans avoided confronting the larger systemic horror reflected in the death of millions. He later revised his earlier comment, but his original words were pretty piercing. So here's one of the most famous images of Anne Frank, who shares many similarities with you, my dear friend. Great writer, sense of humor.
Thank you.
Chatterer.
Maybe, thank you, Cindy.
Can you tell us more about her?
Yes, and thank you for that quote about that Theodore Adorno says about poetry after the Holocaust is barbarous. I think that speaks a lot about the problematic thing that is Anne Frank. This familiar photo of Anne, it's really etched in our visual memory, and of course she's holding a pen, right? Although she will not receive her famous red check diary until her 13th birthday in June of 42, Ruth Franklin's book tells us that we should not be fooled by this studious appearance. Rambunctious, moody, a little bit catty, prone to jealousy. These were descriptive terms that describe Anne, and these were new to me. Although not a stellar student at all, she didn't do well at math, which, God bless her. She was driven, and what was she driven to do? Write. And here are just two of the many anecdotes found in the pages of this book that I notated, and I'm happy to share this book if anyone wants to see what borderline psychosis is like.
Who could read that book with all the paper in it,
Anne was punished actually for being too chatty once in class, and so she was punished by having to write an essay. Well, hot diggity, because she's a writer. So she grabbed the opportunity, and she had an essay. She wrote an essay entitled Chatterbox, in which she argued that talking a lot was a disease that she inherited from her mother. So
we get blamed for everything.
We do. She also, as the war was approaching, little did she know that in May 1940 the Netherlands would be invaded. But when the Dutch heard the hum of German airplanes coming overhead, Anne was face down because she was really trying hard to write a letter in English to her new pen pal, Juanita Wagner from Danville, Iowa. And here is a picture of the letter, and there's our Juanita, and it is in beautiful handwriting in English, which Franklin surmises her dad probably helped write. So there you go. And she also included a postcard of of Amsterdam, and she talked about all the canals in it, and she signs it so beautifully. She signs the letter, hoping to hear from you. I remain your Dutch friend, Annelies Marie Frank. How beautiful. But that's not all. Anne also authored a book of fairy tales that she wrote herself, and she also had a notebook of beautiful sentences. Oops. There's her notebook of beautiful sentences, where she just copied down things she thought. And Susie's saying she does the same thing, so be careful what you say around Susie. All right, so these writings are not one-offs. It wasn't a phase. Well before she goes into hiding in July, so the next month after her 13th birthday in 1942, our Anne is already, she's a writer. And so what's not to love about Anne Frank, The Diary of a Young Girl? And there's the copy that I remember reading. This book right here is the reason, really the only reason why I convinced my husband Bruce, obviously as an adult, that I wanted to go to Amsterdam. And we did that back in 2016. So you would understand and imagine how astounded I was when I read that book with all the Post-it notes in it, because in Ruth Franklin's book, she makes it very clear that that book, Anne Frank, Diary of a Young Girl, it's not a diary. Okay. It's not a diary. Cindy, did you know that when you read this beautiful copy here?
No, that just ruined it for me.
Well, I'm sorry. What did I say about being naive earlier? You made me read the book, and now you got to pay the price. All right.
But
so
once you explained it to me, I get it. But still,
okay.
it's
I know. But this is another thing that's Here's my theme: problematic and Frank. But it's okay. But we're all gonna get there. So just trust me. Famous last words. Now I went to the museum, right? But somehow I misunderstood, I forgot. There were didactics all over the place when I was there, but as I made my way through the Anne Frank house, here's what I remember. I remember standing there in a funeral silence in this crowd, staring at this famous red-checked diary, squinting to see the faded cursive writing in Dutch displayed alongside notebooks and photos that she clipped and collected. The didactics weren't sinking in. I was in the moment. So, why did it slip my mind in middle school when I read that book? And now I was seeing this diary, this holy relic encased like the Declaration of Independence. I'll tell you why it all slipped my mind. I was having a religious experience. Because going to Amsterdam for me, it was a pilgrimage. It was like walking the Camino. And where we stayed in Amsterdam, I had one requirement. I needed to hear the church bells that Anne did. My hotel room, I had to be able to see the steeple. That's it. Made reservations 2 months in advance in order to, I know I have slides about this, I'm getting carried away. Okay. So there's the Anne, just so you can get an idea, that's the Anne Frank Museum and House. So I lined up along with a million other people, dragging Bruce along with me, and we queued in a line that, as you can see, it snakes around the building, and people are admitted every 15 minutes from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m., 365 days a year. Cramped like sardines inside there, you wind your way through the space. It is more akin to being in a narthex, nave, and apse than a simple annex, because we were paying homage. I laid my eyes on this diary. I'm getting goosebumps.
Do you want me to?
I laid my eyes on that diary as if I were looking at the Book of Kells at Trinity College, or kneeling at Mary's burial site in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, or paying tribute to the Queen at St. George's Chapel at Windsor. Go ahead and turn. I even needed a photo of the Anne Frank statue that was around the corner from her house/museum. And it looks nothing like her, but it didn't matter. This is what Anne Frank's book meant to me. Anne Frank, she was my personal saint. Now, Ruth Franklin then explains in the book, step by step, this evolution of what begins truly as a diary, starts out as a diary, it ends up something entirely different. And although complicated, Franklin makes it clear that calling what Cindy and I say to you one of our favorite books isn't a diary at all. So the next slide. To further add complexity to her writing, Franklin spends the entire second half of the book, that's color-coded, the purple impact. It shows that Anne's impact, how she's morphed into a celebrity, political pawn, a victim of fiction. And that's my description, but she is portrayed in fiction like it's nobody's business. Every form of art has been employed to capture Anne's identity, right? We have, here we have a painter, and Cindy brought this beautiful painting to our attention, and this is Jacques Le Havre. He depicts Anne, and Cindy said, as unknowable. A Broadway play spawned the 1999 film that made also a great impression on Cindy and me, and I'm sure a lot of you remember it. Operas, ballets, puppet shows, murals, even advertising have commandeered Anne from the pages of her diary. Of course, endless books have been published too, and you can see this photo that's of Presto Changeo. These are some of the books that Cindy has on her bookshelf, just about Anne Frank. Okay, so next. Not yet. With such global Anne saturation, it made me wonder. I'm thinking, does it really matter then? Because I can be very literal, as we well know, apologies, that the diary, Anne Frank, A Diary of a Young Girl, that it was far from really being an authentic diary. So I'm going to try to peel away the layers so you can decide for yourself. First, we want a definition. Diaries are intended for an audience of one. So already she's off my island, right? But they're intended for an audience of one, okay? So diary writing is a process. It's a sense of self-discovery, of, just sorting stuff out. It helps us gain perspective, validate thoughts, emotions, problem solves. No one should read my diary. It asserts control. It validates one's own self. And if you want to get a little hippy-dippy, diaries separate the I from the me, okay? The I from the me. So diaries are not meant for publication. Okay, go ahead. Now, sure, diaries have been published. 2 examples here, the Diary of Samuel Pepys, and on the other one of my favorite, Mary Chestnut's diary, which if I had a few extra hours in the week, I would love to do a documentary on that woman. But neither Pepys or Chestnut's writing went through the metamorphosis that bestowed upon them the celestial honor of having a star named after them. Okay? Yes, not the Hollywood Walk of Fame type of thing. Don't look down. Don't look down. I want you to look up tonight. I want you to look up tonight because Anne Frank, the star Anne Frank, she's sparkling down on you from the heavens above. Okay, so next slide, Cindy will not be surprised. 19th century author, another saint of mine, Virginia Woolf, who I always must mention. You can all roll your eyes, but it's just a thing for me. She viewed diary as a literary act. 21st century Anne Frank also proclaims the idea, I am a writer, because she takes pen to paper to document for life. So Cindy, can you now share how Richter utilizes paint and canvas to express his artwork?
Thank you, Stacey.
You're welcome.
Richter's early works deal with the Holocaust are pen and ink drawings made while he was still in East Germany at the age of around 25, after he had recently graduated from the Dresden Academy of Art. Now we can see why they have been described by Professor Booklow as, quote, painfully naive, Picasso-esque, falsely affirmative, and treacherously sentimental. Those are the images you're looking at on the screen. They were originally made as a series of 12 drawings for an edition of Anne's diary, and we see how he was experimenting with multiple styles, even one that looks like it could have been done by Matisse. Richter thought they were too stylized and could not come close to representing the Holocaust, deeming them problematic and putting them away for good. Now, another reference, if you go to the next, this is such a problematic image. Another reference to Richter's ongoing struggles with memory and documents. In this case, he used photos to remind viewers of Anne Frank. In the mixed media on canvas, it's Tagebuch is the German word for diary, but he only shows you, he doesn't show you the complete spelling. So it's T-A-G-E-B-U, and then C-H is in parentheses, so you don't see that part. This was made in the early 60s, after he had moved to West Germany, and where he was just barraged with images of pop art. Remember, the early 60s are when pop art is king. Warhol and many other pop painters had made their work had made their way to Germany, and of course there was pop art used in advertising. So he's definitely influenced by pop art here. Now we are confronted with a very disturbing, headless, bikini-clad female with a swath of paint strategically placed. Adjacent to that, the cropped female figure, we encounter like a dark black square or a window with the young girl's faint face reminiscent of kind of a ghost-like image of Anne. And as Stacey so astutely pointed out to me, she's wearing stripes. The image of an innocent victim is juxtaposed with that of a vulgar pinup. Ugh, kind of makes you ill. Exploring the inadequacy of traditional painting to meet his needs, Richter actually destroyed this work after it was once exhibited. And then we see an important transition.
Okay, let's just remember that he had the choice of what to do with his works. I think that's important. I didn't mean to interrupt, but
no,
it's
go
important.
right ahead.
Okay.
So we begin to see an important transition in Richter's painting technique, which is he starts to use what is called blurring, obliterating or erasing images and individuals. And he uses the blur. He doesn't just use it because he feels like it. There's always a reason with him. Everything is intellectually driven. He believes that the absolute truth is impossible to capture in a work of art. Think about that. Absolute truth is impossible to capture in a work of art. And the blurring reinforces the idea that our memories fade over time. That is so
That's
true.
profound. It is. It's true.
Now recall that Richter lived under two totalitarian regimes, which informed Nazism and of course communism, which informed his skepticism in terms of distrusting any art that claims to tell the total truth or to provide a moral lesson. No propaganda for him. Richter said blurring is an opportunity to express the fleetingness of our ability to perceive. Now, 3 years after Tagebuch, we see the difference in Richter's style in the painting of Uncle Rudy. Notice that Cheshire cat smile of Uncle Rudy's face. What a grin. A ghost-like figure painted in blacks, grays, and whites. What's the term for that?
Wait,
It starts with a G.
oh no.
Grisaille. Grisaille. And he's dressed in, I'm sorry.
I totally.
Remember we talked about it.
I know,
anyway.
but I a little bit was
Our
so
memories are
tired I wasn't
fleeting,
paying
both of ours.
attention.
Okay, dressed in his Wehrmacht.
I remember mnemonic. Right. Was that the word? Okay. All right. Partial credit, Mrs. Edelman. Okay. Thank you.
Dressed in his Wehrmacht uniform, standing in front of a wall that reveals the barracks in the background. He was killed soon after going off to war. Rudy was Gerhard Richter's mother's favorite brother, one of two uncles who were killed in World War II. Uncle Rudy is more ghostly than real in this painting. And the painting was based on a photograph, a family photograph taken in the 40s, but deliberately blurred. And according to one of my favorite sources, if you've been here, if you've been with us many times, you know that smarthistory.com is one I used it so much when I used to teach AP art history. So Smart History says this, quote, "Nothing in this painting is clear, not the relationship between the artist and Uncle Rudy, not the tension between Rudy's innocent awkwardness and being a Nazi, nor even the relationship between the family photo and the painting." So this is a photo that he carried his photos. Gerhard Richter carried an album of his family photos with him. He was not able to take much when he defected, but he did carry these photos, and he uses them, as you'll see again. So looking at this work feels like it's time to call Jeff Levinson and get your cataracts done. But Richter drew a dry brush across a wet surface of paint, which again gives a sense of mystery to surround the subject matter. And let's just move to Aunt Mary Ann. Rudy's sister is Aunt Mary Ann, and she was painted the same time as Uncle Rudy, 1965, long after the photo was taken, when in reality she was 14 at the time of the photo. And the photo was taken in 1932 because Richter presents her as a young teen holding a baby who appears as if he's like a wizened old man, when in fact it is the 4-month-old Gerhard Richter posed with his loving aunt in the family garden. After being diagnosed as a schizophrenic, Mary Ann's life changed for the worst. Remember, it was not a good time to be mentally ill in Germany. The Nazis wished to rid those who are not pure Aryan, and poor Mary Ann suffered in more ways than one. She was incarcerated in several hospitals. She was forcibly sterilized and deliberately starved. Ultimately, she was euthanized to free up hospital beds for wounded German soldiers. And once she was murdered, Aunt Mary Ann was placed in a mass grave along with 8,000 other unlucky patients. So we trust that photographs are supposed to be accurate, truthful, factual, but these blurring challenges the notion that causing the images to be ambiguous and unreliable. And considering that these two paintings, based on photos of the family, we see one who is a perpetrator and the other a victim, both of whom help shape the artist and his use of photography, and of course, help deal with the subject that haunted him throughout his career. At the same time, in the early 60s, Richter started collecting items for an atlas of materials that he kept in his studio, approximately 5,000 of them. And these were considered his studio source materials. He cut them from magazines, they were photos, and other materials that were too important to throw away, but not refined enough for him to sell. And he also, at some point, he decides to frame them. And these were images that if you had the corresponding pages from the atlas, it gave you a sense of what he was thinking about that he would go on to paint. So there were sources for his painting. And here is one that shows you what his thinking was at the time. But it wasn't until he was 82 that Richter painted a series of 4 large-scale abstract works that display his definitive attempt to wrestle with the subject of the Holocaust. Initially, he called them 4 abstract paintings, but ultimately designated them the title Birkenau. So why was the subject such a lifelong struggle? Any artist who has dealt with the subject of the Shoah has faced the very same dilemma, which is, how do you represent the enormity of a historic calamity that dealt with, the large numbers that we've already mentioned? The historical event that was the Holocaust defied depiction. There's no way we could know
I have to chime in here too, because even when the Nazis were being prosecuted after the war with the Nuremberg trials, many of you probably already know this, there also was no language. We had no vocabulary. So we had to come up with terms like genocide and crimes against humanity, and there was no law. If you're an attorney, you try people based on other cases. How? I mean, this again speaks to how problematic. So it's not just Anne that's problematic.
Right.
Are we looking at the right slide? I want to make sure I'm keeping up because I didn't know when to turn.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so according to Professor Buchloh, Richter felt that he could not let the event simply just vanish. And the Birkenau paintings are an attempt to do justice to the historical events they reference. Now follow me carefully because it's confusing. Richter's series takes as its foundation 4 clandestine photographs from August of 1944 at the height of the final solution in Auschwitz-Birkenau. And by the way, Anne Frank and her family arrived there 1 month later in September of the same year. These photographs, and you're looking at 2 of the same photographs here, that were taken by members of the Sonderkommando. They were primarily prisoners, Jewish prisoners, who worked the gas chambers, and they led innocent people to the gas chambers, and then they would burn them or cremate them.
They had to extract their bodies from the crematorium, and then they had to cremate them. Yeah.
So 2 of the photographs, the ones you're seeing here, are showing the cremation of the corpses, and just you cannot even begin to imagine the length in which there were 4 men who went to the extremes to just take the photos. The camera was left in a bucket, and even the gentleman who took the photos was a Jewish Greek man who could not obviously raise the camera up, so he kind of took them at a low angle, and furthermore, they were smuggled out in a tube of toothpaste, and they were given to a member of the Polish resistance.
And surely that toothpaste had to come from, they had to steal it from a Nazi. I mean, every step of the way is inconceivable.
Well, right, and being a Sonderkommando was no great honor because of what they were doing. I mean, this is generalization, but most of them were murdered anyway.
Yeah, because they were witnesses, so they had to be taken care of too. So they had to they knew it was a death sentence.
Okay. I don't know if you can even see that. And the reason it's so dark on the left-hand side and the right-hand side was the gentleman was inside a doorway, and he had to get a signal that it was safe because they were surrounded by the SS. And then this one, really you can hardly see, but these 2 show groups of naked women who are being led to the gas chamber. So there's been much written about Richter's paintings that were based on those photos. They were taken, as I said, inside the nucleus of the horror, which no other visual material exists. And so it goes without saying it was a dangerous assignment.
It's these singular 4 images that are witness.
These are the 4 witnesses to what happened.
Is it any wonder you see this when you're a young kid and you end up doing what Cindy and I do? I mean, it hits you. I mean, you can't get your head around it.
According to Yad Vashem, which is the Israeli Holocaust Museum, that these 4 works are considered the only eyewitness photographic documents of the Holocaust. And if you're intrigued as I am, you can Google Yad Vashem and learn more. So Richter saw these images in the 50s while in Dresden, and again in the 60s. And then, of course, he started collecting the earlier image that I showed you that Stacey had up on the screen. And then in 2008, he read a book review in a Frankfurt newspaper and was reminded of the images again. And that's what really spurred him on to paint the scenes that you're going to see. You can go to the next. Okay. So he took his time with how to treat the subject matter, which showed his deliberate and sensitive intent. 6 years after revisiting the photos, finally in 2014, he transferred 4 photographs to canvas. And according to the Metropolitan Museum, he spent a year just trying to get the figures to work. So he started out with the figures first projecting them or sketching them onto the photographs onto 4 monumental canvases. That's what you're looking at here. And then he proceeded to use charcoal and oil to create recognizable figurative versions of the photographs. And after that figurative approach, he didn't think that really worked. He felt it was impossible to execute in a way that felt morally honest. So he erased the images. And while erasing the physical evidence, the photos, through the process of abstraction, he relates to the process of remembering and forgetting simultaneously. And so you keep that in mind, because that's really what these are about, these images. They're about this back and forth going of remembering.
Should I turn the slide?
Yeah, please turn the slide. The one on the right is his painting. He painted that. Yeah,
I know, it's remarkable.
It's really unbelievable how fantastic it is.
I can tell he's classically trained.
Yes, he
right?
was.
You can tell that?
Yes. Okay, now go to if you would, to these two. Okay, so what he did was, on top of the erasures, he applied layers of brown and gray and black over the drawings that, were still maybe a little bit, there was some of the drawings left. He didn't maybe erase all of them completely. He layered paint over paint using a giant squeegee. And then he would repeat the same cycle again. And the first 2 paintings are from the multiple naked corpses laying on the ground near an outdoor fire pit with the bodies waiting to be burned. Black, gray, and white compose the monochromatic palette. Now these are the finished paintings. Okay, there's so many iterations. Photos 3 and 4 reveal the naked women who were hurried toward the gas chamber set within a wooded area. I think I just confused you all. The first picture goes with the first painting, the first and second cycle. The 3 and 4 relate to the naked women who are hurried toward the gas chamber. And according to scholar Brooklow, Richter's paintings included streaks of deep red, and which stands for the blood and the fire, and then green in the 2 second images, the reds for the blood and the fire, and then the greens for nature, in particular the forest, where all this heinous activity was set. This is described as a cruel cycle of growth and destruction, and it's challenging to reconcile the beauty of all the birch trees in Auschwitz with the death of 1 million people killed there. Now, remember that these are not just abstract works of art, they are mnemonic erasures, and they are about the process of destroying the representational image to mirror the way our memory fails or fades. And he also uses veiling, which is like the physical act of layering. And some people think of the veiling as shroud. Or, it shows Richter's empathy for the victims is a significant point to recall. He didn't want to use their suffering for aesthetic purposes. So he didn't also give us a work, not only did he not give us a work that's not beautiful or redemptive, but he added 4 large mirrors to the whole cycle. And these are tinted gray. And so he forces us to see our own reflections in it. And I found this fascinating when I was there, because if you turn around, you find yourself within the context of Birkenau.
The confines, the confines. You're in the camp.
Too. And it made it feel like I was in a sacred space, as it was so somber and so muted. And he also, interestingly, determined that the paintings would never be sold. He ensured their permanent legacy for the German public. The works are on permanent loan to the Neue Gallery, the new National Gallery in Berlin. So how do we handle Richter's artistic treatment of the Holocaust in Birkenau? He's balancing actual historical evidence with his artistic language. Are we horrified by the erasure of the truth, or the blurring of facts of the only visual evidence of what happened at this death factory? Or do we agree with Richter that a literal interpretation of what happened doesn't suffice, that a painting could not restore history of what happened there? But it certainly protects the struggle to keep it in our memories by engaging with us, by showing us the limits of our own eyes. He suggests that the truth is not found in a clear picture, but rather hidden beneath the surface. Now, Richter depicts the truth in his art. How is truth reflected in Anne Frank, the book that we love, Stacey?
Well, I just had a thought. I think the reason why I'm having an epiphany. I think the reason why I feel compelled to capture as many stories, like the stories of Susie and Molly's parents, and Janine's in-laws, and her brother-in-laws and husband, is because we need every story. Specifically because how Cindy has explained how Richter expresses what happens with truth. As soon as we write it in, Hillary, your diary, then they say that your memory, we learned in our memory program last year with Dr. West, you rebuild your memory every time you trigger it. Rebuilding it from scratch up. You're never triggering the same movie plugging in. You have to rebuild it. So I'm going to answer how Anne does this by simply stating from her first journal entry, which is, quote, I hope I will be able to confide everything in you as I have been never able to confide in anyone, and I hope you will be a great source of comfort. So this is what Anne is already asking of her diary. She is writing in a direct, spontaneous voice. Her diary, she's hopeful to find a friend substitute. She's in hiding. So her tone is personal, a little formal, a bit tentative, but it's written in real time. It's written as it's happening, so keep that in mind. Her entries, they were lengthy, sporadic, but boy, did she spill the tea. She's saying all the gossip about what's happening at school. She's complaining about her teachers. She's telling you about all her birthday gifts, and she's also has catty remarks about everyone who attended the party. This is what I mean when no one should read your diaries. She also provides information on how the family went into hiding, and once in hiding, she continues with her chatty details, and then once she becomes familiar with her diary and she gets into this routine of writing, you have to know that this is one of Anne's favorite book series, Joop der Heer, written by Sissy van Maxveld. She had a marvelous collection of characters in her books, so Anne chose one of the characters whose name was Kitty. And now moving forward, as she gets more comfortable with her diary, it's Dear Kitty. And you can see right there, that's how she says it there in Dutch. And the diary, now her confident, she shares all the vicious remarks that she writes about her mother, and she found her mother annoying, obtuse, boring. There was no respect. This is a diary, right? And she also wrote about sexuality, menstruation, and her nascent love for Peter. And this intended audience shifted, though. Major shift occurs in May 28, 1944. She's in day 632 of her 761 days of hiding. And she's listening to the radio with her family. And she hears, next slide, she hears this guy, Gerhard Bolkenstein, at 7:30 this evening make a major announcement. Breaking news. The Dutch government wants to collect all your testimonies, anything you've written about the war. See, this is a government after my own heart. We want to collect those because we're going to publish those because, like Hillary's diary, we're going to document what happened. We're not going to let anyone get away with this, okay? So when Anne hears this, she perks up because she realizes her diary has the ability to be published. Remember, this is a young girl who wants to be a writer. Well, this is another opportunity. So she decides she's going to rewrite the whole thing, starting over from 1942. We're going to go back a few years, because remember, it's 44, and she's going to title her work, and her title is Her Achterhuis, The Secret Annex. So she already has a title. And from the very first entry, we're already doing Dear Kitty, because she's becoming more of an evolved writer. And according to literary critic Philippe Lejeune, per Franklin, for Anne, to try to transpose her diary into something publishable was akin to trying to fit a sponge into a matchbox. Okay? So once your diary has an audience of more than one and the writer, it ceases to be a diary. It's no longer a diary. Okay? But our Anne, who is now 15 years old writing, wearing clothes that are bursting at the seams. She's getting a figure. Her shoes, she's grown out of them. We have no picture of what she looks like. You saw the image earlier. You know, think back to being 13 and thank God you turned 15. So we have no idea what she looks like, but we know she has adopted a literary tone. And now she's both subject and narrator. Okay, this is a major shift. And Kitty hears all the backstory about the family. She's setting the tone and all the information necessary for any reader to appreciate what a blow it was to have to go into hiding. So the older version of Anne is also squeegeed out, right? She's getting rid of it. And here's just an example of how she writes now. Instead of all the catty remarks about the friends, she's going, I wander from room to room, going up and down stairs, feeling like a songbird who has had her wings clipped, who is hurling herself into darkness against the bars of a cage. This is before Maya Angelou. Okay, this is a writer who's going to go places. She makes thoughtful allusions to Greek mythology. She has Old and New Testament references, adds a lot of heft, and the sarcasm towards her father eliminated. Gone are the feelings towards her mother. People are going to read this, right? Anne makes stylistic decisions that adjust dates. Okay? She renames characters. I like documenting the truth. This makes me very uncomfortable, but does it matter? Right?
We're on the right slide.
Yeah, that's fine.
Do you want me to move?
Have we seen Peter yet? Let's go to Peter. There he is. Franklin raises an eyebrow. She's also skeptical as we read through the book of the authenticity of Anne's diary entry in the new version. Remember, she's now going back and writing about things that happened 2 years ago, but trying to pretend it's happening in real time. This is an impossible writing assignment. It's impossible. And I also feel badly that I haven't mentioned Peter at all in this new version of the diary, because all that sloppy stuff about, ooh, I'm in love, gone. But we know about him, don't we? So how'd that happen? Okay, because Anne has no choice what ends up happening to her work. No choice. In her original diary, she's saying that we told each other so much. I can't repeat it all. It was so lovely. It was the most wonderful evening I've ever had in the secret annex. This is a girl who loved going to the movies until she was banned. Okay? So maybe it was just too personal. She didn't want to be defined by this first love, right? She wanted to be a serious writer. And the crush faded. It faded. So when the annex was raided, Anne's original diary and the many notebooks that follow, because she filled up that little diary I showed you. And we end up, like you saw, with the many notebooks. That's okay. We can leave it on Peter since he gets so ignored. And they're strewn across the floor when she gets arrested. She never sees those again. Our Anne and her sister Margot were able to stay together in Auschwitz, like Cindy said, where their mother was gassed immediately upon arrival. They were then put on another train and taken to the hellish Bergen-Belsen. If anything could be worse than Auschwitz and Birkenau. And there they died, days apart from typhus, maybe in February-ish, 1945. Look, we can't know. That also is smeared from us. Her body dumped into some mass grave. But her body of work, elevated to new heights by still undefinable. And we will never know if she missed her pen and paper. But we can guess, right? The two Dutch Gentiles, Miep Hughes and Bep Foschkau, who supported the Franks during their entire time in hiding. They collected all those diaries that were left on the floor after that family vanished from the annex. They collect them and they held them in the hope she'd return so they could give them back to her. But that was not to happen. When Otto, her father, the sole survivor, returned, forever a hollow man, Miep and Bep handed him what was left of his daughter's flesh and blood, her writings. He couldn't bear to read them. Can you even imagine? But once he did, the desire to get Anne's story into the world filled an incomprehensible and unimaginable void in his heart. He said it was important for the children, especially the German children, to know. But buckle up, because his decisions to make the book fit for publishing will forever be criticized. Remember, no good deed goes unpunished, right? People say he was a profiteer. You know what? But this man's whole family was murdered. He was homeless, stateless, penniless, so I feel that's such an unfair charge. He was accused of censorship.
Oh. Well, he did. He did.
But
he censored her.
But the book you made me read, Franklin says, and emphasizes that it's not so much he censored, okay? He did fuse the old diary with all the stuff about Peter and the mom, with the new diary, with all the stuff that was fit for purpose, and he made his own diary. So we have A, we have B, we have C. And not all the notebooks and loose leaves of paper were able to be collected, so now he has voids he has to fill, okay? So he becomes editor, and a little bit, I would argue, co-author. And the only thing I can think of that's going to make this one cringe is, you know, a few years ago.
Don't say it.
Remember when Natalie Cole did that song with her dad? And her dad's in it, and they do it together. And some people thought it was amazing, and some people hated it. Okay?
I didn't hate it, but I just thought it wasn't inappropriate to bring it up in this context.
But that's why I'm here. I'm sorry. But look, I have to be, that's what I thought of. She had good intent, okay? She loved her dad, and so Otto loved her daughter. So look, I'm not a defense attorney, right? But I think we can understand what he was trying to do. His family's laundry was going to be aired, so all the criticism about him never makes it. The power of being the editor. But Molly, trust me, I'm editing a book of stories of Molly's and Susie's. I use a very light touch. Trust me, I just don't want any typos. Okay, all right. So once Otto had his typescript, he travels from his home to that of a well-known author, asking her opinion. Do you think this is worth publishing? She reads it and absolutely affirms him, get this published. You know who that author was? The writer, Sissy von Marksveld, the author of Anne's favorite books that had the character Kitty. You tell me if that's not meant to be. I dare you. Okay, so now, 1947, he finally finds a publisher, and there we see the resurrected version we'll call C, and this is, it was published in 47, and it's entitled The Annex Diary Letters 1942 to 44, which is, okay, I can a little bit live with it, but anyway, it was immediately considered an authentic diary, immediately. So now we have a myth that's been seeded. The book ran into problems in Germany. Who's surprised, like Cindy said. And and now it gets very dramatic. Because now, this is perfect, because now this is traveling to the US, and you're not going to believe what I have to say. The book did not sell in England. They pulled it off their shelves because who wanted to be reminded of the war? Forget about it. So Otto comes to the US, and he shows it to a rabbi. right? You're looking for like, you know, a little support.
That's pretty shocking since he didn't want anything.
Don't
related
even
to
tell me you
Jewish
think
in
that's
it.
shocking.
No.
Please, what does the rabbi say? No one's going to read this. It's a kid's diary. No endorsement from him. And his name, he'll go unnamed because I don't reveal my sources. Then it was shopped to, you know, all the major publishers, Viking, not all of them, too political, too Jewish, too much sexual content, you know, and these are all the same reasons why it's still banned today, right here in our state of Florida, very locally, very nationally, you know, again, you know, even the Bible's been banned because, you know, talking animals. So anyway, it's true. So earlier I mentioned, I never thought I'd get the giggles during an Anne Frank lecture.
I know, really.
It's not my fault. It's all your fault.
Oh, it's all my fault. Oh, jeez.
Anyway, all right.
I'm just not going to say anything nice about you at the end like I was.
Oh, no, I'm in so much trouble. Okay, so earlier I told you that a friend asked me, why is Anne Frank's writing so special? Well, when she first asked me that, feeling kind of sassy, I looked at her and I go, Doubleday, the publisher. That's why it's so popular. Because that was the one publisher who took a chance on it, albeit with reservations. There was an internal marketing memo that emphasized this is not a Jewish book. Okay? The goal was to reach the non-Jewish neighbors and convince them that Jews were just like everybody else. You can trust us, just like everybody else. The inside flap of the book explained the book as a compelling self-portrait of a young girl on the brink of maturity in the critical years of adolescence. And the back cover had the endorsement of Eleanor Roosevelt. Is it Roosevelt or Roosevelt? I don't know, I'm from the North. Roosevelt, thank you. Okay. She emphasized that the diaries were uplifting and had a universal quality. The word Jewish does not even appear anywhere on the front cover. There's the original.
And hardly in the book, ever.
Well, right.
I mean,
yeah, it does.
What's so problematic about it.
Yeah, but even in the original version,
have been hiding if she wasn't Jewish.
But even in the original, they're German Jews. They assimilated.
Doesn't matter. If you're Jewish, you're Jewish.
But even Jews who could have cared less about a Hanukkah candle, it didn't mean they were observant like these really religious people you see.
The Nazis didn't make any distinction between secular or
I can't believe I have to defend the Franks now and their Judaism.
Okay.
It was like Judaism light. They didn't need to be Jewish. They were very proud to be German. We cannot judge with our 2020 sensibilities what happened years ago. Time traveling not allowed. You just can't.
Okay.
All right, I'm getting way out of hand here. Anyway, where were we? Okay, so Doubleday believed that for it to sell, it had to appeal to everyone because they're booksellers, right? And with the full endorsement of zero advertising dollars, they bet on this book, and boy, did they win. Thus, a runaway bestseller is born in America in 1952. The titles for consideration were Secret Annex, In Hiding, or In the Night. Now, I could have lived with any of those, but the winner was Anne Frank, The Diary of a Young Girl. So there's your myth. There's your myth. And for anyone who questioned the authenticity, one of the later editions published a letter that said, yes, indeed, these are authentic. And our 1952 sensibilities, we couldn't Google, so everyone believed it, okay? So the impact was undeniable, helping establish the diary's global readership, and it became a canon in schools. But there were a lot of complaints. A 1997 article entitled Who Owns Anne Frank by the author Cynthia Ozick. She argues, basically, I'll distill it, that what you read was sentimental pablum. The film, garbage, everything else garbage, because she said it's no longer a document about what happened. It doesn't say anything about what happens to her. It's glamorized, it's sanitized, it's diluted, it's all the things, and she hated it. Okay, I'm moving. Oh my God. Okay, I'm really sorry. That's it. So, the moral of the story is, since then, there have been definitive editions where you have all the three diaries side by side, okay? So, but Otto never said mum until the late 70s, that he a little bit kind of fused things together. But does it matter? And I would argue, on my last page I will find, that the reason why Anne Frank is so special is exactly what Kathy said. And Kathy said, I am Anne Frank. Anne Frank is relatable, and that is the power of a good story. You can put yourself in it, you can become it, and if you can do that, that's the power of art. That's the power of writing, okay? So that's what I do in my work. I encourage writing. The film that I did, Traces, is based on writings. So, that's how I feel, and I really feel that it truly speaks to what the power of art can do. Cindy, I'm really sorry. Oh my God.
Don't be sorry. Okay, so we know we've given you a great deal to ponder today during our annual Holocaust LiterArt presentation, and it's important to us that you leave here in a hopeful mindset. And I am more than delighted to show you a beautiful story, quickly, of the culmination of one woman's persistence that I witnessed in Gainesville a few Sundays ago, when my friend and LiterArt colleague was one of the keynote speakers at the Isser Price Library at the University of Florida, where after 8 years, I really feel for those Cohen siblings, of cajoling and coaxing the special Cohen siblings, Tommy and Yvonne, to share their parents' treasured puppets and accompanying materials with the University of Florida, finally reached fruition. I want to tell you that there were not many dry eyes in the library listening to the Cohen siblings share stories about their incredibly brave parents who survived Rotterdam in hiding by giving puppet shows. What a family legacy. What stories were shared in laughter and tears. What a testimony to Stacey's persistence. After 8 years, she never gave up. What joy seeing the exhibition, seeing the family's happiness at how it turned out, sharing the experience with about 50 friends from Jacksonville who made the trip to celebrate the special day, many of whom are here in the audience today. Thanks to your support, and thanks to all of you for your support of Searching for Identity and Stacey's recent campaign. As a result, Stacey is poised to make her dreams a reality. And that is, of course, making a new film called Hope and Hiding, about the Cohen family and their, yes.
Thank you.
What a blessing. I can't believe I'm calling her a blessing. What a blessing. No, she is a blessing to me. Join us. She is.
Okay, good. This is not about me.
Okay, yes, it is about you. Oh, God. Join us for our final...
Oh, I could talk to you for many hours, hold you hostage in here. But
No. Okay, click. Okay. Okay, and there's a couple more. Can you show? Oh. Okay. Join us for our final lecture of the season, Wednesday, May 13th, for Mark Twain, Winslow Homer, Robert Henry, and who knows who else, with Stacey, probably some potential bodice rippers. Thank you.